Hello, welcome back everyone. Hello, welcome back everyone to this concluding session of the European Theatre Forum 2020 European Performing Arts in Focus. Hello, are we all here? Welcome back. So this is our concluding session of the European Theatre Forum 2020. We have been asked to sum up 3 days of intense discussions during the European Theatre Forum, considering the density, the richness, the diversity of our program, much like the theatre and performing arts, really, that's not an easy task. So during these 3 days, we have heard from the 3 institutions of the European Union. In the first day, the European Council and the member states through the voice of German Minister of State for Culture and the media, Monika Grütters, who insisted on the fact that theatre and performing arts in the European Union member states deserve political backing. And she has expressed her hope that the European Theatre Forum would create strong voice in Europe for our sector. Yesterday, we heard from the European Commission through Commissioner Maria Gabriel's speech, affirming that our sector can fully count on her support and her hope that this forum will become a regular tool for all of us. This morning, the European Parliament, through Sabine Verein, chair of the Committee for Culture and Education, reminding of the vital importance of supporting and protecting European artists and cultural workers, because they are the ones to protect and ensure access to Europe's cultural diversity.
We have seen and heard from many theatre makers and performing artists all over Europe, not only testimonies about the current crisis we are living through, the necessity to rethink, reinvent, and recreate projects that were on the brink of completion right before the COVID-19 pandemic stopped everything, premieres postponed or cancelled, major European theatre and performing arts festivals cancelled as well. Now we have also seen empty theatres, empty auditoriums. We have also seen and heard artists and cultural workers who ceased performing, ceased touring and earning a living even in 2020. We have seen and heard artists who are learning and embracing the digital opportunities, just as we have had to do for this first European Theatre Forum. We heard from arts educators as well, who are working hard to give the young and emerging artists the best possible opportunities and support them in becoming truly European artists. We've heard from artists and cultural workers who are deeply engaged with diversity, inclusion, accessibility, who are deconstructing privileges and asking the most central questions. Whose stories are we telling in our performances? To whom are we telling them? And what can we learn from each other? We've heard from artists and cultural workers who want to make theatre accessible for all citizens, starting from childhood and regardless of their age, race, class, or gender, whether they live in cities or rural areas. And we've heard from artists to come back to the opening words of Maria Aberg on Wednesday, who are creating space for a multitude of perspectives with patience and care, and space to do the hard and sometimes uncomfortable work of being human collectively.
From all of them, we have heard the intention, the desire, the need even to meet, to exchange, to work internationally, often through multidisciplinary work, open to the collaboration and the exchange with the others. Starting from theatre and performing arts education, where, as we have seen, international collaboration between institutions needs to be implemented, to all different stages of an artistic and cultural career. We have been reminded that, as Umberto Eco said, the language of Europe is translation, and that international collaboration An international collaboration means intercultural and plurilingual exchanges, and to be ready to learn from the others. We have been told by artists and cultural workers and activists who are leading the way towards a greening of our sector's practices and discourse that theater and performing arts are a way to make some sense of this world in which we are living, and have an important role to play in making the emotional case for climate action. The way towards a more sustainable future is an inspiring opportunity, and our sector needs to recognize this one of the most urgent question of our times.
Those 3 days have also been the occasion to stress and highlight the role of theatre and the performing arts as a public space, physically and metaphorically, for exchange, dialogue, and democracy. A public space that is so sorely missed at the moment, as most of us are confined to our homes and missing social contacts and the contact with our audiences. We've heard from artists and cultural workers who throughout the continent are suffering under the harsh realities of our sector's working conditions, the low wages, the precarity, the instability. Artists, and especially artists in the independent performing arts sector, are threatened in their economic existence. Now, the COVID-19 crisis has amplified these shortcomings and increased the awareness that social funding and contracting systems need to be renovated. We have heard their voices and the urgent need to work towards fair working conditions in the arts all over Europe, an urgent need which can be framed as fair pay and fair play by including all stakeholders, artists, institutions, policymakers, funders. And we have heard also that the urgency of protecting the autonomy of the education systems and the freedom of the arts everywhere on the continent. We have discussed how theatre and performing arts embody European values of unity and diversity, of solidarity, all values much needed in 2020 as the sector is only just starting to recognize the consequences and the damages wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic and the multiple national lockdowns and the economic crisis that will ensue, of course.
We have discussed the funding programs for the sector and how cultural policy can contribute to a system change that includes and involves everyone in the cultural ecosystem, especially in the frame of the European Green Deal and the negotiations for the next multi-annual financial framework. We have heard from and entered a dialogue with policymakers throughout those 3 days as well. MEPs, representatives from the European Commission, national representatives, who have all urged us to raise our voices for the sector and for our needs. They have encouraged us to speak, to ask, to demand, and promised that they will hear us and that they will amplify our voices. Now, under the special circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, with all dire consequences, but also in the future and for the future. And we will keep raising our voices. We will further the conversation started during those 3 days.
And we are now turning to Heidi Wiley, Executive Director of the European Theatre Convention, who is one of the co-initiators of the forum and a member of the consortium that curated this program. So Heidi, hello. After these 3 days, can we say that we have reached the goals we had set out for the European Theatre Forum 2020 European Performing Arts in Focus? Are you satisfied with what has been achieved? Was the forum a success?
Well, I think a very straightforward and clear yes. It's been a success. Ian, I think you've just summarized it very well. I couldn't have said this differently in my own words. But maybe let's just go one step back. It's been now nearly a year ago that we met for the very first time with those 12 organizations from representing individual artists, companies, public theaters, festivals, academies, and sectorial federations, upon the invitation of the Commission to be heard for the very first time. What is our need? Where are our challenges? And back at the time, this was basically just about challenges around international collaboration. And we have concluded back at the time a year ago, it would be really important for our sector to have a stronger voice, what has now been discussed and emphasized so much over the last 3 days, that we have this common meeting place beyond our own individual conferences and spaces. And so here we are. And when we first created in May this consortium, the situation had totally changed, as we all know. And we had set out with 2 goals. One was really to set in motion this sectorial dialogue and this process of collaboration to get a better understanding of each other and to bring this change. And we had the task to organize this forum in the moment when all the theaters and performing art venues around Europe were in the first lockdown, tirelessly developing strategies, complying with sanitary regulations to reopen, and preventing the virus simply to spread. And in a moment when solidarity became so important, when our entire professional and sectorial existence was all of a sudden non-existent anymore, non-systemic relevant for society, erased from one day to another. Well, I think what has been achieved over those last 7 months is something that we are actually quite proud of, in having come together, curated this forum, in addressing all of our challenges of today, together with policymakers. And I think already our ties and the community has become a little bit stronger through this experience. So Ian, yes, to answer your question, the forum has been a success in creating a sectorial dialogue and a process of collaboration. But I think, and it's important to not only praise our own work here, we won't bring change alone. It's important to mention the successful efforts of all the other stakeholders in our joint ambition for our sector to survive this crisis and to have a sustainable future. The Commission launched 2 weeks ago the European Theatre Initiative, a strategic action following the successful footsteps of the Music Moves Europe initiative and the cultural heritage programs. And only a few days ago, the European Parliament secured an increase of 30% of the budget line for Creative Europe, amounting now to 2.2 billion euros for the final deal of the next EU budget. This is an increase of 53% in comparison to the amount foreseen in the previous period. So I think that's also important to mention.
Yes, so what is next? What are your plans? Will you take the results of the forum to policymakers? What is the next strategy for us?
Yes, so I said we started out with 2 goals, and goal number 2 was to create a common voice to develop a policy dialogue. And for this, we formulated a joint position, what we call the Dresden Declaration of the European Theatre Forum. It's also the result of this unique several months collaboration process of the European Theatre Forum Consortium as well. And it presents the values, the challenges, and the way forward for theatre and performing arts in today's Europe. Our first and foremost conclusion is that the pan-European collaboration, which is about learning from and about each other, creating a strong common voice and enhancing the policy dialogue, it must be continued, deepened, and also taken to the next level. Our second conclusion is that the pan-European focus on the performing arts sector at this first European Theatre Forum has clearly shown a European added value. There is a need for coordinated action to enhance transnational collaboration and promote diversity in theatre and the performing arts. And for this to happen, it's imperative to develop a unified European vision for the sector's recovery and sustainable future. So in short, we call on European policymakers, one, to follow up on the current sectorial and policy dialogue by organizing the second European Theatre Forum in 2021, and two, to set up an EU support strand focused on theatre and performing arts. And now I am joined by my fellow consortium members to present you our 8 concrete suggestions for the way forward. And I'd like to hand over the word to Fabrizio Gifrasi, representing the European Festival Association and who's General and Artistic Director of the Roma Europa Festival. Thank you.
To develop a comprehensive and coordinated plan to support and revive the sector during and after the pandemic. Increased and continued financial support must be at the heart of such a plan. The full list of recommendations can be found in the statement by Pearl entitled Give Live Performance a Future, and in the joint position statement by the European social partners. We believe that various European Commission DGs, committees of the European Parliament, and national ministries should work together on such a plan in a concerted manner, aiming and delivering fair, inclusive, and sustainable support and recovery tools.
We call to implement the European framework for working conditions in cultural and creative sectors and cultural and creative industries, which was proposed by the European Parliament's resolution on cultural recovery of Europe and developed in close dialogue with sectoral players of all levels and types.
We call to address the urgent need to defend the freedom of artistic expressions and acknowledge the undeniable power of the arts to open minds and encourage critical reflection.
We call to enhance the focus on inclusion, diversity, and access in the performing arts sector, policy agendas and funding programs, including Creative Europe 2021-2027. We call for the collection of data in this domain at the EU level and the creation of a special sectorial working group aimed at designing a EU instrument for inclusion, access, and diversity in the sector, which includes a focus on rural areas, the involvement of artists with minority backgrounds, and education in and through the performing arts.
We call to foster the internationalization of the theatre and performing arts sector at 2 levels. First of all, increasing structural support for international cooperation through augmented and continued funding for co-production, networking, cross-border touring, the development of satellite link tools, and other tools that expand access, sign language, captioned performances, exploring and designing an EU program to foster the internationalization of theatre and performing arts studies, both within Europe and globally. Second thing, promoting Europe's diverse theatre program and activities to improve the audience's experience and foster openness and accessibility through communication campaigns such as a European theatre label.
We call to address environmental sustainability at 2 levels. A, the role of the sector in implementing the European Green Deal as a driver of social innovation and contributor to the cultural shift needed for the sustainable transformation of contemporary societies and economies. B, the sustainable transition of the sector itself through funding, financial incentives, training and awareness raising, the promotion of existing best practices, research and innovation, the implementation of new models and specifications of mobility justice, and more.
We call to promote the European theatre and performing arts as a public space where an open societal dialogue can take place and diverse voices can be heard, as a public yet very specific and contained local gathering place in a European context of multilingualism and a social diversity, as a public space that allows artists and performing arts professionals to be avant-garde and frame our culture, our societies, and visions of a better and more open future for Europe. The current moment challenges us to reimagine and rethink how we live together as a society and how we can reconnect spaces and people in the post-COVID world.
And we call to work towards creating a consistent and regular system of collecting data in the sectors, based on the indicators agreed by the member states and made available at a European level, for example, by Eurostat or the Council of Europe. Those indicators would include demographics, economics indicators, social impact, environmental footprint, mobility, diversity, inclusion, working conditions, and more.
And we believe that the explorations and implementations of the above, or of the just mentioned recommendations should start in 2021. And we call on the trio presidency of the Council of Europe, in collaboration with and the support of the European Commission, to follow up on the current process, to continue the dialogue, and that we see each other in the next European Theatre Forum in 2021. And dear Barbara Gessler, I think you're here with us as well. We will present you here with the Dresden Declaration of the European Theatre Forum to help us shape the way forward for our sector, one of the most important and key cultural sectors in Europe. Thank you. And Barbara Gessler.
Can I say 2 words?
Yes, the word is yours.
Thank you. I'm not going to be, I mean, this was a wonderful conclusion of 2.5 intense days, which were extremely inspiring. And I would like to just say, I thank you. I take on virtually and spiritually the Dresden Declaration. I promise that the European level will stay at your side to develop your cooperation, to keep on connecting, to keep on creating, and to keep on reaching to your audiences. For us, the most important element in Europe, and now I've learned with Angelica Lidell, it's maybe more than a responsibility, but even an obligation to promote and safeguard our cultural and linguistic diversity. This is our main driver, and we have heard, not least during those 2.5 days, that you have a very strong and important role to play in this, and your contribution is absolutely vital, yours of the theater sector and the performing arts sector. So I take this with me, and I take it to our institutions. You have heard my commissioner taking a strong commitment to continue supporting you, and of course, you will know that I will remain on your side for this as long as I in the post that I'm currently in. But hopefully we have now founded a structure which can go beyond this day, and it will go on for the next years. So that, I think, was a very good foundation that was laid today, and Dresden Declaration will be our homework at the European level. And we will now have to see how we can really fulfill all the tasks you gave us, and we will continue in dialogue on this. This is a very important message, I think, that comes out of this forum. And last but not least, I know it's not the time for a lot of words, and I gather we will meet with a glass of whatever at the balcony in 10 minutes to celebrate. But I would not be leaving you without thanking you very much for all you have done a very great moderation by Gina and Ian during the 2 days, a wonderful consortium consisting of very, very strong organizations and initiatives that have accompanied this. And of course, the initiative group with the ITI, with ETC, obviously, and with the Bundesverband Freie Darstellende Künste, the support of the State Minister for Culture, and last but not least, of course, you ladies, can I say, in the team, Heidi and Alice and Hélène and Josephine, thank you very much. You were really the anchors of this whole event. And it probably wouldn't be happening if there wasn't Serge also to be allowing for all of this to happen. So I would like to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be accompanying you in this very special endeavor. And I hope to see you live. That's my real wish very soon, and in good health.
Well, thank you very much, Barbara Gessler, for your contribution and for your very warm and kind words. Now comes the moment where we want to express our warm thanks to the 60 speakers from
Gina,
yes.
May I just interrupt, because we have a little change in program, and therefore I would like to ask Joachim Clement from Schauspielhaus Dresden to join us and give the word on to him. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Heidi. First of all, thank you for being our guest in the last 3 days. It was a great pleasure to be the host of such a successful dialogue. And one information for all the friends of the Fast Forward Festival at work this year. Since yesterday, the pandemic has also affected the Staatsschauspiel in Dresden backstage and thus online. To break a possible chain of infection, we had to send a part of our technical team into quarantine. This restricts us for the remaining program of the festival in terms of live formats. We are trying to bring all other formats on air as planned. Changes and updates of the program will be communicated on the festival homepage and in the festival chat. The festival talks cannot be presented live, but we will record them and make them available in the video library shortly afterwards. We didn't expect to be this way at work, but those are the times. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Joachim. We are now back, and we like to thank again to all our speakers, 60 speakers from 23 countries, experts, artists, and moderators, and to their interpreters, to the participants and the audience from all over the world for their active participation over these past 3 days.
And thank you also to the Consortium of European Theatre and Performing Arts organizations for their collective engagement in the past 6 months and for having curated this program. Thanks to the German artists collective Cyberräuber for building our wonderful forum platform. Thank you to our virtual host, Staatsschauspiel Dresden, of course.
And thank you to the wonderful organizing team who has brought us all together, the wonderful ladies that Barbara also mentioned. So thank you, Alice Burrows, Diana Bugun, Helena Schaden, Josephine De Sol, Hélène Gauthier, Teresa Pfound, and Christy Roma. Many thanks to the European Commission and to the German Minister of State for Culture and the Media, who have supported this first ever European Theatre Forum in the frame of the German EU Council presidency. And last but not least, thank you, Jan, for having my back for all the technical issues during these 3 days, and for accompanying me and being such a good colleague. Thank you.
And thank you, Gina, for bridging the moments of infinite silence like yesterday when technology is yet again failing, and moderating these 3 days with me, of course.